The text for our sermon this morning is taken from Revelation chapter 19, verse 11. I saw heaven opened. In 3 days, we will be celebrating the birthday of the new church here on the grounds of Brynathan Cathedral. We mark June 19th, 1770, as the official date in history when the final volume detailing the Lord's long-awaited second coming was finished, at which point we're told the Lord called together the 12 disciples who had followed him in the world, and the next day sent them throughout the whole spiritual world to preach the gospel that the Lord God Jesus Christ reigns, whose kingdom shall reign forever. We celebrate the new church and give thanks on this special day for many reasons. One reason is because we have gratitude for this church organization, the General Church of the New Jerusalem, a human organization which tries to keep the bar high by modeling itself as closely as it can to the direct teachings of the heavenly doctrines. Another reason we have gratitude is because of our friends and family the world over, going back many generations, which provides a strong sense of belonging, a strong network of like-minded individuals, which gives our church organization a sense of unity and purpose, a sense of community in which we support each other by living and sharing the faith with others. Another reason we have gratitude is for our schools, in which we pour organizational focus and energy on our children, on young minds, again, by trying to keep the bar high, by modeling our philosophy and educational practices as closely as we can to the direct teachings of the heavenly doctrines. Another reason we have gratitude is for our source material, the heavenly doctrines of the New Jerusalem, which reveal the spiritual sense, the inner meaning of the Bible, which gives us a new kind of clarity about the Lord, faith and religion, providence, the afterlife, many things which for millennia have been a stumbling block and a source of skepticism for people the world over. We celebrate the advent of the modern-day printing press, namely the internet, which has enabled thousands, nay, millions of people around the world to discover the teachings of the new church online. And another reason we have gratitude is for the hidden effects of this new religious movement. This new revelation is said to surpass all miracles because it has produced spiritual change in two worlds simultaneously, the natural and the spiritual. As a result of the second coming of the Lord, there has been a last judgment in the spiritual world and a reordering of the heavens, which means that now there's a trickle-down effect in that all people on earth can experience and enjoy a new kind of spiritual religious freedom. So yes, we have many reasons for celebrating New Church Day and much to be grateful for. Today, in preparation for our celebrations, I invite you to consider closely the words of our text, I saw heaven opened. What does it mean to see heaven opened? Is this a metaphorical expression, or is it describing something different? And if it's more than metaphorical, how might this activity work in us, individually and collectively? Well, first of all, in our celebration of the new church, we can't ignore the means by which the heavenly doctrines were given to the world, namely through the Lord's humble servant, Emanuel Swedenborg. In a rare reference to himself, Swedenborg said in the final volume of the published works that since the Lord cannot make himself manifest in person again, and yet foretold that he would come again to build a new church, that he, Swedenborg, was called by the Lord to accept these teachings intellectually and then publish them by means of the press. And so today, the world enjoys the fruits of this labor, 18 published volumes which comprise the formal, systematic theology of the new church, sometimes referred to as the Church of the New Jerusalem. But is this what we're really doing? Celebrating books? Is this what the new church is all about? The books? Well, the books are obviously very important, as are the Old and New Testament. But something else has happened too. Heaven has been opened. Not theoretically or figuratively, but for real. Heaven has been opened in such a way that there's now a reawakening of the human spirit, a reawakening to everything that touches our physical senses, a reawakening to the connection, to the thin veil that exists between this world and the spiritual world. Now, we might think that this isn't particularly newsworthy. Anyone familiar with the teachings of our church, the heavenly doctrines, knows that heaven has been opened up by virtue of what its pages teach and declare and claim. But what makes this reawakening significant and new and different is the access that we have been given to a new tool, a new key, which has been lost for thousands of years and has now been found. Let's explore the significance of this discovery a little deeper. In ancient times, people on earth experienced a very close connection to the spiritual world. We read, for example, that when they saw a high mountain, they did not perceive the idea of a mountain, but that of height. And from height, they perceived heaven and the Lord. When they perceived the morning, they did not perceive the morning itself that starts the day, but that which is heavenly and is a likeness of the morning and the dawn in people's minds. For these people, whatever they saw with their eyes was for them heavenly, and so everything was, so to speak, alive. The people of most ancient times intuitively perceived everything around them: the rocks, the trees, the flowers, the meadows, the mountains and hills, the lakes and oceans, animals and birds, fishes and insects, to be correspondential in nature, meaning they knew that everything on planet Earth, including themselves, gained existence as a result of having a counterpart in the spiritual world. The special term for this causal relationship is correspondence, and we read about it in our lesson today. I have shown in my book, Heaven and Hell, that every single thing to be found in nature corresponds to something spiritual, and likewise every single part of the human body corresponds to something spiritual. No one has known until now, however, what correspondence is. In the earliest times, correspondence was very well known. To the people who lived at that time, the study of correspondences was the supreme field of study. This explains why heaven has been opened to us, and in a way similar to the people of ancient times. Heaven has been opened to us because the key, a knowledge of correspondences, which was lost and has been found again, and given back to the world. We sometimes forget that the Word, the sacred scriptures, the Old and New Testament, was written by means of correspondences. When the Lord came on earth, we're told that he spoke in correspondences. This is because, quote, divine ideas present themselves in the world in the form of correspondences. Therefore, the Word was written entirely in correspondences. And so we learn that the study of correspondences, which allows the spiritual sense to be grasped, has been revealed today because the divine truths of the church are now coming into light. And the opening of the spiritual sense at this day is meant by John's vision of heaven being opened. So this is how heaven is opened to us, by means of correspondences. What an incredible declaration. A practical way to think of correspondences, both in the Word and in nature, is to think of physical objects as being a sort of portal that opens heaven up to us. Think about climbing a mountain or drinking a cool glass of water on a hot summer day, or watching the sunrise, or watching bees at work in their hive, or standing by the ocean, or fishing in a lake, or sailing, or pulling weeds in the garden. These everyday activities have a correspondence, and as a result, connect us to heaven. Again, this connection is not symbolic or metaphorical. It's as real as the love that we feel for our loved ones, friends, and neighbors. And this is because a knowledge of correspondences unlocks a spiritual mind-body connection similar to that of the ancients. Another practical way to think of correspondences is to consider the symbols and signs that we see all around us. Commercial companies will spend a lot of time and energy and money creating a brand or logo because they know that symbols engage people's hearts and minds, no matter how frivolous or superficial the product or service might be. There's also a hierarchy to symbolism. The logo or symbol of a sports team, for example, while meaning a whole lot to fans, is nothing in comparison to a country's national flag or a national monument. Or think of something as simple as a wedding ring. The ring holds tremendous power. The ring holds little power or significance to someone who has no knowledge or appreciation of marriage. But wedding rings, those little chunks of gold, are deeply significant and powerful to those who understand the symbolism. In other words, the ring has a correspondence, and it opens heaven to those who are in love. Now think of symbols in the Word. They hold an even greater correspondential power and significance to the person who understands their purpose and function. So rather than thinking of them as words on a page from religious books that we know we should respect and revere, think of them also as keys that open our hearts and minds to either the dangers of selfish living or the heavenly delights of living for causes greater than ourselves. And so this brings us back to the first thing that John sees after heaven is opened to him: a white horse. And we read, "He who sat on him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war." Throughout history and in mythology, and in many cultures, horses have this correspondence of corresponding to the power of the intellect, our understanding. These animals project speed and forward motion, galloping and champing at the bit, charging forward. And they correspond to the human faculty of understanding. This is important because in the new church, we're taught so many times that our mind, our intellect, has the ability to rise above our feelings and emotions and annoyances into the light of heaven itself. And we can do this whenever we want. We have that kind of spiritual freedom now, and regardless of how we might be feeling at the time. This is the Nunc Licat promise, to enter with the understanding into the mysteries of faith. And so to ride a horse symbolically is to put your mind onto something and to not let up. And we have the full power of the Lord in his second coming, driving this mindset, driving our intentions. The other images connected to the vision of the rider on the white horse are a bit more disturbing. We get a description of the Lord prepared for war, clothed with a robe dipped in blood, with a sharp sword coming out of his mouth, ready to strike the nations. And we're told the reason for this, that for a long time, this precious knowledge of correspondences, which unlocks the spiritual sense of the word, still won't be recognized or appreciated by everyone, because the hells, that dragon of old, still wants to draw blood. The hells still want to attack and sabotage these powerful new correspondential connections between heaven and earth that the Lord has reestablished in his second coming. It is a cautionary tale because this is precisely how the knowledge of correspondences was lost in the first place. The hells got a grip of human minds so strongly that people didn't simply lack belief in spiritual things. They became convinced that earthly living was all that mattered, and that our connection to a spiritual realm was an illusion and didn't exist at all. But this is not how the story ends, because we have a far stronger and compelling message in this text. John saw heaven opened so that he might see the rider on the white horse. This powerful image of the Lord, faithful and true, riding on horseback with the armies of heaven at his side, is a vivid descriptor of how the Lord in his second coming is leading and guiding his people in ways that have not been possible since the Golden Age, since ancient times. So let us rejoice today because heaven has been opened in such a way that the truths of the second coming are reawakening the human spirit. They're reawakening everything that touches our senses. They are reawakening the connection between heaven and earth. The other symbols in the book of Revelation, like the woman clothed with the sun, the child, the dragon, Michael and his angels, scenes that we will see depicted in our June 19th pageant, are all correspondential too. They are not metaphorical or allegorical images. They open heaven in a very real way and connect our spirit, our mind, to the birth and the struggle and the growth of the new church in us as individuals and collectively as a church. Our hearts are filled with so much joy and optimism when a child is born. We look at that child and feel the sphere of heavenly innocence pouring into the room. All of that excitement, the happiness, the promise, the hope, all that potential. Well, the same is true when we stop to celebrate the birthday of the new church. We are filled with the same kind of awe and joy and optimism because heaven has been opened again. Amen.